All right, Rurouni Kenshin Season 2, Episode 20, and yeah, we actually do get a small piece of the Kenshin versus Aoshi fight in this episode, and it was animated amazingly, I think. At least for as far as this new iteration of Kenshin goes, the POV shots of Aoshi barreling towards Kenshin and a couple of the other shots of the characters fighting. I thought it was a great testament for what's to come, and if you know Kenshin, you know that the final fights of the Kyoto arc are absolutely insane, and if they continue this quality, or with Season 3, maybe get a little bit of a budget increase and continue moving forward, I think this is a good example of what's to come in the future, and if so, Season 3 might be the best season of Kenshin ever. The only thing they really need to improve still is the music. And also, I want to see a little bit more battle damage on the characters. You know, that's something I also really appreciate from 90s anime is they were always very, very good at showing characters bleeding out or scarred up or their outfits being dirty and ripped and torn. You don't get that as much in newer anime, at least the ones that I watch. So I'd like to see a little bit more of that as well. I do want to apologize right off the bat that I am once again under the weather. I'm sick, so my voice might not be the best to listen to. And just quick personal details. I was sick earlier this year also, and it feels pretty much exactly the same. I was taken out of commission for multiple days, fever, body aches, sweating profusely, totally stuffed up. The only thing I don't have this time is the cough, but what really pisses me off is that I haven't really been sick like this for like 5 or 6 years. And then I got sick in January, really New Year's Eve going into January, and it was the sickest I'd been in like 5 years. Finally got over that like 2.5 weeks later, and I was like, all right, we're good. And then all of a sudden this week, out of goddamn nowhere, I got sick again. I was like trying to work on a different video, and I just couldn't focus, and I could feel something in me just not working right. And all of a sudden the fever broke out. I was like sweating profusely. I was like, literally, I was wearing this hat. This hat was soaked. But at the same time I was freezing. Dude, I just don't know. I've gotten sick twice in 2025 after not being this sick for years. And it's just pissing me off. Not that that has anything to do with Rurouni Kenshin. I just felt the need to vent and also apologize why my voice sounds like this. But anyways, all right, so we were talking in the last episode review that they are definitely shifting and changing things from the original manga and the original anime here, most particularly having Aoshi show up on the Purgatory, which he's not in the manga. And my biggest curiosity was whether or not they were going to have the full Aoshi versus Kenshin fight here, right now, early, or if they were going to just have them kind of skirmish for a little bit and then save the real fight for later. I still do think we are going to save the real fight for later because it hasn't gotten nearly as intense or even philosophical as the battle does. The real fight, not to spoil anything, just very, very minor, is that it contains a lot of dialogue. Aoshi and Kenshin are talking back and forth a lot about what happened with Kanryu, what happened to the other Oniwaban, why Aoshi is doing this. There's a lot of conversation in their fight that makes the fight so significant. And we're not really getting that here. Instead, Kenshin is really on the defensive because Shishio is watching his every move. And you know, one of the major characterizations of Shishio that was established earlier is that he's extremely observant of people's fighting styles, and once he sees a technique, you know, he locks that in. And so Kenshin doesn't really want to give away any of his new techniques or really anything at all of his swordsmanship because inevitably he's going to end up fighting Shishio later. So Kenshin's in a seriously bad predicament where Aoshi is on this quest of vengeance and way more determined and way more powerful than he was before, coming after Kenshin with lethal intent. At the same time, Kenshin is trying to defend against that. He's also trying to not show Shishio any of his techniques. So he's really in a dire situation here. But because of that, we do get a lot of creativity with the Aoshi versus Kenshin fight, with Kenshin trying to like climb up the, you know, the top of the ropes of the ship and trying to avoid him in multiple different ways. And so that's Kenshin's predicament throughout this entire episode, is that he's constantly, you know, going back and forth with Aoshi while having all of these observers here. But there's many other characters on the boat that we need to talk about. So my first character that I want to bring up is Saito. Now, arguably, other than Kenshin himself, Saito has always been my favorite character. I love Saito so much. He's an absolute badass, but I don't think they did enough with him here in this episode, considering the circumstance of what's happening. So, okay, Kenshin is immediately busy trying to defend against Aoshi, right? So he's doing that, right? And then you have Sanosuke, who gets on board the ship and starts heading towards the engine room to try to blow it up. Okay, makes sense. So then, who are you left with? You're left with Saito. And Saito is arguably on par with Kenshin, you know? So he's right up there towards the top of the strongest fighters. And, you know, he takes out Shishio's guards, which he should, easily, by the way. And then Sojiro jumps down in front of Saito. And when this happened, I was like, yo, what? What? Because they do not fight in the manga at all. So I was like, oh my god, are we going to get like Saito versus Sojiro? What the fuck? And there's this moment that Sojiro is like, what are you going to do if Aoshi kills Kenshin? And then Saito's like, well, I guess I'll have to kill you and Shishio then. So that's totally in character. But what was weird isn't necessarily that we didn't get the fight, but at the end of the episode, I don't know if this was an animation error or what, but they have Sojiro back on top of the boat with Shishio looking down, even though he had just previously jumped down in front of Saito, assumingly in an attempt to ward him off. So my question is, why is Saito not attacking? And then two, was it an animation error for Sojiro to jump down in front of him, and then we don't see anything happen, and then all of a sudden he's back up with Shishio? I don't know. I thought that was weird, and I also thought it was weird because Saito is such a powerful force that they're not really doing anything with him in this moment. That's the only drawback of this episode for me. Now, I like the episode overall. I really, really enjoyed it. This was exciting to me as a longtime Kenshin fan to feel like I'm getting new content, you know what I mean? And like I said, I don't mind these deviations from the manga as long as they don't destroy the core story, the core fundamental story of the Kyoto arc, which I don't think that they've done at all. So I'm fine with all of this, but just having Saito kind of stand there, I don't know. That's the only thing that kind of bugged me about the episode. The other thing is that we have Sanosuke running towards the engine room, and Hoji, of all people, goes to stop him. Now, I'm not opposed to Hoji going to stop him because obviously he would want to. Like, he is the guy that is the biggest supporter of Shishio, and if there's anything that he doesn't want to see ruined, it's this massive investment into this warship, you know, into this battleship. So obviously he's going to try to stop him. And they decided to use the moment for humor, which is okay. But it's also odd to me that, I mean, it's funny to see Hoji smacking Sanosuke with a bouquet of flowers, right? And it's great to see Sanosuke punch the shit out of Hoji. That's great. I love it as a humorous moment. But the fact that Hoji would go down there without an actual weapon or without a gun or something, that also kind of threw me for a little bit. You know, it's weird because I'm overall positive on this episode, but now that I'm reviewing it, I'm like finding nitpicks, I guess. I didn't go into it to bring up these points. I'm just thinking about it on the fly. But yeah, it seems weird that Hoji wouldn't have something a little bit more, I don't know, offensive to bring with him. Anyway, those nitpicks aside, I love the fight. I love the Kenshin versus Aoshi fight that we're getting here. I love the animation of it. And like I said, I think it's a good indicator of where this anime is going to go in the future, because the best is yet to come. Like, the best fights in the series are still coming up. And I think this is a good sort of tease for that. Now, the other parts of the episode were also very interesting. So there was a moment in the last episode that where Misao and the other Oniwaban stop one of the fires from starting, and Misao is on top of the building kind of cheering people on. Now, there was an extra moment that was supposed to happen in that scene where Usui shows up behind Misao, and they didn't do it there. Instead, they decided to add an extra scene here with Misao, Kaoru, and Yahiko kind of taking down some of the goons, and then Usui shows up. But essentially it plays out the same way. They have a minor victory, they're stoked, and then Usui shows up behind Misao, raises his spear, and, well, we won't talk about what happens until the next episode, because I don't want to spoil it. But then we have the added scenes of the new characters that they've been promoting in this new version of Kenshin. The first is the police officer character that we talked a little bit about in the last episode, and all of his men are down, and he decides that he's going to face off against Kamatari and Henya by himself. And we don't get to see the result of that fight. Obviously, it's not going to do well unless they really want to change things. But that's going down over here. There's a lot of cliffhangers for this fight. So we see him about to fight them, and it cuts away. Usui about to stab Misao, and it cuts away. Obviously, Kenshin versus Aoshi. And then there's that added scene with Shishio's henchmen, the ones that we focused on. I forget the characters' names, I apologize. But it's the two characters that we've been focusing on that tried to start the fire in the last episode. And they come across the older police officer and the kid that originally found the sword and was brought to the police station. All that's not in the manga. So forgive me for not remembering these characters' names. I'm just not used to them. I should probably look it up, right? But whatever. Anyways, yeah, so a confrontation breaks out. The older police officer falls over, cracks his head open, assumingly dies. There's a lot of blood. I'd be surprised if he lived. And then there's a moment where one of Shishio's henchmen goes to, fight to kill the kid, and the other one's like, yo, like, it's a kid, you know what I mean? And jumps in front of him. And it all goes down to this, ideology that has infested all of Shishio's supporters of the strong will live, the weak will die, survival of the fittest. That is, if you boil down to its simplest explanation, Shishio's philosophy is survival of the fittest. The strong live, the weak die. That's the rule of life, and it's as simple as that. And that extends into everything that he tries to do. So what's going to happen there? I doubt that they had the kid actually die. Probably what happened is Shishio's henchman did kill his partner. I don't know how much characterization they're going to give these characters. Like, I don't know if we're going to reach Shishio's henchmen switching sides or if we're going to get into any of that kind of stuff. But it's interesting. It's interesting. And I don't mind these additions. As I said, as long as they don't destroy the core fundamentals of the story, I don't mind a different version. I already have the 90s anime, and it's one of my favorite anime of all time, and I can go back to it anytime I want. As long as they don't, kill off a character too early or ruin a character's development in service of a new character, or just, destroy something that's core to what is trying to happen, what is happening here in the story, then I don't mind it. So the next episode is called Kyoto Fires Part 3. So I'm assuming this will wrap up this Kyoto Fire segment and the Purgatory and all of that. And then we'll have 2 episodes left. And my theories, without spoiling anything, is I think we'll have 1 episode be kind of the resolution to the Kyoto Fires. And then the final episode of the season might be the Shishio backstory. That's my sneaky suspicion right now. Anyways, guys, let me know what you thought of this episode down below. If you're a new Kenshin watcher, leave all your thoughts, theories, and opinions. And if you're a longtime Kenshin watcher, how do you feel about these changes? To me, it's working for the most part. There's only been a couple of things along this whole season that I haven't really liked, but for the most part, it's working. I have a few minor nitpicks with this episode, but overall, really enjoyed it. Was pretty stoked watching it, so let me know what you guys think down below. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Thank you everyone that sent in a super thanks last week. That really, really does help me out, man. Appreciate it so much. You guys are awesome. And 3 episodes left, man. So I'll see you next week, and we'll talk about probably the conclusion to the Kyoto Fires. So see you next time.